who is on this program. So I will listen carefully. I am the regional coordinator for the food bank for Central and Northeast Missouri. My area covers 8 counties. Cole County is my largest county, and I go to the furthest southeast. So Camden County would be my furthest county. The food bank encompasses 32 counties. We are a very large food bank covering a pretty substantial area of Missouri, not just Columbia. Our bank is in Columbia, but that bank services 32 counties in central and going up northeast Hannibal. We go to Kirksville. So we cover those counties as well. We are 40 years old, so we have been around for a while. We are a member of an organization called Feeding America. And oftentimes people don't really know how it is that when we say we can take $1 and turn it into $21 of food purchasing power, that is a direct result of our relationship with Feeding America. And Feeding America has been around since 1979. They are essentially a food distribution center. And so they have access to wholesale, different types of distribution, farmers, restaurants. And so through Feeding America, we are able to have a pretty extraordinary purchasing power. So when people donate money to the food bank, it's different than if you go to your local grocery store and what you can buy for $1 is far less than what we can buy for $1. And so our purchasing power really does come from Feeding America. And as we are members of Feeding America, we are also the only food bank, and I think this is really important, particularly for people who are donating to us. We are the only food bank in the state of Missouri, and one of very, very few in the entire nation, that provides food at absolutely no cost to our partner agencies. But what we ask in return from our partner agencies is that they also do not charge for food to clients that come to them. And many of our partner agencies just wouldn't be able to pay. They exist on donations as well. They're nonprofits. They're doing social services. In this town in particular, RACS would be one. Halo is another one of our partner agencies. We partner with First Christian Church, Salvation Army, the Samaritan Center. And so we provide food to those agencies, and we do so at no cost. And then we ask them in turn to not charge their clients for food. And so we're really proud of that. We think that's really important in getting food to people that need it. COVID has certainly provided a lot of challenges to us, as it has every single person in this country. People that have never been food insecure have found themselves to be food insecure during this pandemic. And for obvious reasons, they're unemployed. They have experienced health issues as a result of COVID. Children are not in school. They're dealing with, childcare issues. And so in Cole County, and I'll speak to Cole County specifically because I'm assuming that your listeners are probably listening from Cole or even Osage County, which is in my area. Prior to COVID, or previously before COVID, we had 1 in 6, according to Feeding America, and they do a lot of studies to kind of see what our food deserts look like and what the food insecurity is in our service areas. They were saying 1 in 6 kids were food insecure, and now through this pandemic, we're seeing 1 in 4. So the numbers are stark. It's a very big increase. The Central Pantry in Columbia was servicing 1,000 clients a month, and now it's about 1,400. And so those are pretty big numbers that we're having to deal with. We're proud of the fact that we have been able to do so without a lot of interruptions to our supply chain. And that's also, and at the beginning of this pandemic, the supply chain and getting food out was problematic. Feeding America made that a little easier for us. And so, you know, we're grateful for that for sure. In terms of the services that we have here in Jefferson City, we have partner agencies. And so those partner agencies, some are open to the public and some are not. Like Halo is not open to the public. RACS is not open to the public. First Christian Church is, Salvation Army is, the Senior Center is, the Samaritan Center is. They have adopted, some have adopted new hours to deal with COVID. Some have been able to, First Christian Church I know has been able to operate the same hours, which is really nice, because a lot of people who use those services don't have access to the technology that you and I might have access to, where we could just get online and look up and see when something is open. And so those services are there. We have, I don't know if you all know, but we have partnered with the United Way. So we're a United Way agency. We're a proud partner agency with the United Way. They're extraordinarily important to us in these 8 counties that I work. And several years ago, we partnered with them and they purchased mobile food pantries. And so in addition to our regular pantries,
that makes sense.
We have 5 or 6 mobile pantries that go into food deserts throughout Jefferson City. We have one in St. Martin's. There's also one in Russellville. And so these go out, there's also one in St. James, Missouri. So these go out different times of the month, they're posted. We've had to zig and zag a little bit due to COVID. And actually this week and last week because of the weather. But that service is really, really important to people that might not be able to get to a pantry or in more underserved areas. And so those mobile pantries are pretty amazing. And they serve a lot of what we refer to as foods that encourage, foods that are nutritious and foods that encourage. And these are healthier food items, organic, farm produce, organic milk. Sometimes it depends. There's a variety of things that go onto these trucks. They're not the same every single month in our mobiles, but we are really proud of the fact that 60% of the foods that we offer are considered foods to encourage. And so our mobile pantries are another thing that we do here in Cole County and our other service areas. And then probably the thing that people maybe here in Jefferson City know us best for, it is certainly our largest program. It is the program that that requires the most amount of our resources, would be our Buddy Pack program. And the Buddy Pack program is a program whereby we have prepackaged food that goes into a pack. And I'm going to explain the difference because COVID has changed this program pretty significantly. Prior to COVID, in our communities, we would have buddy banks. And so here in Jefferson City, we have a buddy bank. It's on St. Mary's Boulevard. You maybe have seen it and you've maybe never been down that way or noticed it. It's across from Shepherd's Distributing Company. We actually partner with Joe Shepherd's with that building. And in that building, we would get bulk food. And the bulk food would come in and we would have volunteers go in and actually assemble the buddy packs. And so just to give you an idea of the scope of those buddy packs, in Cole County alone, we do 700 every weekend that school is in session. So it's a pretty substantial amount of packs. We do 7,500 buddy packs a week in our service area. So when COVID hit, one of the biggest obstacles and challenges that we faced at the food bank was our volunteers. And a lot of our volunteers are retired, they're older, so they were, really vulnerable um, to the virus and in this pandemic. And schools were out. So schools were letting out. The way that we get the food to these kids is in school. And so we had to sort out what we were going to do with our volunteers. And we had to sort out how we were going to distribute food to these kids. And it took a lot of local partnerships and creative thinking, work with our different school districts to come up with a solution to make sure these kids were getting food. And also throughout the summer, they were getting buddy packs. And so the first obstacle, which I'll address, was the volunteers. And we cut our volunteers. We haven't brought them fully back on. We were really, really blessed in the middle of the summer, I think starting about the end of May through the end of July, and then they came back on. We had the National Guard. So the National Guard was at our food bank in Columbia working. So we didn't have just our regular volunteer crew. We had the National Guard. So we didn't have anybody here in our buddy bank. And so what we came up with is a pre-packaged buddy pack. So it comes to us already packaged. It's not bulk food whereby there's this assembly line, and the Rotary Club every Wednesday comes, or once a month comes from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock to assemble these at our buddy bank. We're no longer doing that. And so they come to us prepackaged. The great thing about this, so the downside is our volunteers, we don't need them anymore to assemble and to pack, which was an awful thing because they love doing it and we love our volunteers. So you have to find other ways to use them. But the really positive thing that we're hearing from students and teachers and parents is that there is variety now in these packs. And so for years, those packs were the same thing every single week. They did not change. It was the same protein, the same can of ravioli. Kids would get a jar of peanut butter once a month. And now we are able to do a little more shopping with those, and there's more of a variety. So kids love that. Teachers love that. Parents love that. We love that. We think that's a great thing. The cost went up a bit. We had not changed the cost of our buddy packs for years. So they had gone up before, but we were still saying for $5 a week, you can get a buddy pack to a kid. $170 a month, you can give a kid a buddy pack for a year. That number has changed. It is now $7.50 for a buddy pack every week. And it is $270 a year for a kid. So $270 times 7,000, that's quite a bit of fundraising and grant writing that we do on the development end of the food bank to make sure that we can pay for that. Again, we don't charge schools for that. Schools do not pay $1 for the buddy packs. Children do not pay $1 for the buddy packs. Those are free to kids who have signed up for them. In addition to buddy packs, we also have school pantries. And so if you've thought about it, or you know anybody that's had it, buddy packs for elementary school kids, not a lot of stigma there. They're happy to get it. They're excited to get it. You get to junior and high school level students, and there's a bit more stigma. And so what we do there is we work with schools. They sort of decide how they want to provide the food for kids. Generally, it's a school nurse or a guidance counselor. There's a pantry somewhere in the school, and the kids can go and take food from the pantry and take it home. It's more discreet. It doesn't come in a buddy pack with with our mascot on it. It's just a bit more of a discreet program. We also have different food pantries at universities. So we have one at Rolla, which I went to school there in the late 80s. It was called UMR. Now it's Missouri School of Science and Technology. They have a food pantry for their students, and Mizzou also has a food pantry for their students that we supply. We just added about a year ago, and time is very difficult right now with COVID. It's hard to, seems like we lost a year, but about a year and a half ago, actually, we just added Building Community Bridges as one of our partner agencies. So they also have a food pantry that services kids over at their facility off of Madison Street. So we're really proud of that. Does anyone have questions for me at this point? Nope. Okay. There's something pretty big that is getting ready to happen here in Jefferson City. And so if you're familiar with Columbia, or you've volunteered at the food bank, or you've ever volunteered at our central pantry, we are getting ready to partner with Catholic Charities. So Catholic Charities just recently purchased, worked out a deal with the city. They actually used to own it. So it's a kind of an interesting story, but they used to own it in the 60s and 70s, could be further back than that actually. And then vacated that area, and Capital City Productions, used to be Capital City Players, then Capital City Productions took over that space. And they had dinner theater there for, 15 years, 16 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. They are now at a new location. In fact, I saw that they had a ribbon cutting today, which is nice to see for them. So Catholic Charities is back in that facility. It's the old Scheichel's building. It's a very large building. I never went into the basement and saw the gymnasium. Perhaps you have, but in the basement, there's going to be a central pantry, and it will be open. I believe their goal is 6 days a week. It will be set up much like a grocery store where people can go in and they can shop at their pantry. They have partnered with, this is something that is really kind of the new trend with food banks and pantries like this one, is this pantry, Catholic Charities is partnered with St. Mary's Health Center. And so not only is it going to be a central pantry, but there will also be some social services provided at that facility. So there will be, I believe, like eye exams. I know there's going to be a refugee center, so they can have people who are refugees in the community can get help there. Health and wellness. Maybe some light dental. I think they're going to probably grow into that. That is definitely a high need area. It is, in terms of what we do at the food bank, it is a food desert over there. One of our mobile pantries is actually over there once a month at Little Discovery Explorers. And one of the cool things that Catholic Charities is going to do, because it's also close to Helias High School, is those kids are going to be involved with some service and volunteering. There's also a senior center located over there. We do senior boxes. So partnering with them to get those senior boxes delivered to the seniors that live in the senior center over there, as opposed to them having to come over, walk over. It's very hilly over there actually, and collect from that facility. So that is really exciting for us. It's going to be our largest partner pantry in Jefferson City. They wanted to be open. I think it was the very beginning of January they wanted to be open. Obviously COVID put a hitch in that get along as it did so many other things. And so I think they're shooting for sometime mid-year 2021. So this year. So that's a really exciting partnership for us, and it's a very, very good thing for this city. It's a very good thing for this city. Trying to think of what else I want to tell you all. That is really kind of it in terms of what we're doing, how COVID has affected us. I've been on Twitter quite a bit today. I've got relatives in Texas, and I've got relatives in Austin, Texas, specifically. And so like you all, I'm sure, I'm paying close attention to what's going on in Texas. They have major problems, as we know, with the weather. They have major problems with their utility companies. We are finding out that they're having pretty big problems with their water and their water supply. And we know they are having problems with food. Their grocery stores are emptied out. And what I'm seeing just on Twitter, especially through different Feeding America sites that I pay attention to, is they're raising money right now and trying to mobilize food and water into that area. So the work that we do, you know, we kind of refer to ourselves as like we deal with national disasters and we deal with emergencies. And you know, we were on the ground here in Jefferson City, and what was it, the May of 2019 when the tornado hit. We're disaster relief, but we also exist all year long. So when disasters happen, and it seems like we've had more than our fair share as a country, you know, we're on the ground and mobilizing and trying to get food into the hands of people that need it the most. And children are definitely a critical component of that, especially with the schools, especially with schools not being in session. So getting, you know, that was always, when COVID hit, that was always such a worrying part of COVID is, what do we do with these kiddos that don't go to school? Because that's where a lot of these kids are getting their food. They're getting breakfast and they're getting lunch at school. And so now they're not at school. So how are we going to make sure those kiddos are getting food? And so we've had to come up with some really creative things, and some things that we thought were going to be temporary have sort of become the way we're going to do things in the future. They make sense to us. They're working smarter, not harder. Some of those things cost a little more money, but we're better prepared should something like this happen again. Like, there's a roadmap. There was no roadmap when we started. I mean, it's been 100 years since we'd had anything like this. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I want to read a story to you. It's not terribly long. I think it's profound and impacting. And then I'll close out by kind of talking about how you can get involved. There are many ways. So if there are no questions, does anyone have questions?
Jami, you might talk about some of the other areas other than, you know, Cole and Boone County. What about Northeast? Are the problems even worse there, or just?
It's not my area, so I cannot speak to you about like Hannibal and we have different coordinators that work those areas. I can tell you that Miller County and Morgan County are extremely hard hit. They don't have a lot of industry. And so when you look at Morgan County specifically, there isn't a big, there's not a lot of industry there. And so when they're raising money for their food pantries and their buddy packs, and they have them, we really rely on the lake area, and the lake area is extremely generous. They kind of work together with Miller, Morgan, and Camden, and you get a really good sense of what areas have funds. Camden County is is a relatively well-off county. Miller County is not. They are, however, getting ready to get a Quaker window plant there, which will bring jobs, it will bring industry, and that will help. But I think what's always kind of been what I've been extremely impressed by is that those three counties kind of work as a tri-county. They work together, and they write grants together. They kind of include themselves together to make sure that that they're pulling in some funding for programs that exist there. But the numbers are high. They're high. They're high. 1 in 4. That's really in our service area. 1 in 4 kids. So it's big. And the thing too is we just don't see that number going down. And it'll take some time after the pandemic is over and the blowback from the pandemic. But when our numbers have gone up even prior to the pandemic, we don't see them going down. And so it's a pretty big social problem that needs to be addressed. So
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
In the chat, there is something others say in the chat, what needs to be changed in order to reduce food insecurity in Jeff City?
Oh,
That's huge. Yeah.
I don't have the answer for that.
Yeah.
The economy, obviously, people need to be, people need to get to work. It's such a political question, and I'm one argument that could be made for that question would be a living wage. It's certainly something that is being discussed in Washington, D.C. right now, that people are able to, work one job and not 3 jobs and sustain a family. That's really tricky right now. Jeff City's got some, and I can speak to Jeff City because I live in Jeff City. The other counties I'm familiar with in terms of our pantries and our donors, they definitely are an important part of this. But in Jeff City, I think we have an unhoused problem too. So we've got an unhoused problem.
Definitely.
We have a food desert problem. They go hand in hand. I was quite concerned. When the temperatures got as cold as they did, and they sustained that cold. I don't remember it ever being this cold this long in my life. I'm 50, born and raised here. And I appreciate the library being open for people as a warming center. You all did your part. But it didn't seem to me that we had places for people to go to spend the night. So the Salvation Army, of course, is that place traditionally, not just in cold weather, but anytime you can get a cot there. But
it's not enough.
It's not enough. And I might have missed something. Generally, our churches offer an overnight warming, and I just didn't see that this year, but I could have missed it. Not laying blame. But that's a problem that we have too. So we have a poverty problem. We have a poverty problem. We have a mental health problem. So these are all things that, like, as I was saying before, one of the big trends with food banks is we are tying into healthcare, because this is not just you just have a food problem. A lot of times you have a lot of problems. You have a lot of social problems. You have a lot of things that are not being addressed that you need help with. And I don't know if any of you have ever done the poverty simulation that the city offers. Has anybody ever done that before? A poverty simulation?
Yes. Yeah.
So back me up if you felt this, but what I truly felt about the poverty situation was the absolute feeling of hopelessness. And it's designed to do that because people that are in this situation do feel hopeless. But one of the things that was so frustrating throughout the course of the simulation was you were going 20 different places to take care of things that needed to be taken care of. It wasn't a one-stop shopping. You don't have a car. You have limited resources in terms of your money. Our bus service, I think we can all attest, is not serving us well. When we close at 6, when the bus shuts down at 6 and people work a second shift or they don't get off work before 6 and then they have no transportation to get home, that is a problem. And what this simulation kind of does is it's like, okay, well, you have to take your money, get on a bus, get here, and it'll deal with this issue. But you've got like 10 other issues you need to deal with. And so it's really frustrating. And you feel just terribly hopeless with the whole thing. And what this sort of new model is with food banks, and like particularly you guys are going to see it with the Catholic Charities, is it's one stop. You can go to that pantry. People who are going to go there, maybe they're going to go there because they're hungry and they need food. And while they're there, they're going to have people volunteering and working with Catholic Charities saying like, hey, do you need, how are your eyes? Like, do you need to go get this checked out? Where they're not driving all over town because they can't, number one. A lot of them, a lot of people that need these services do not have access to transportation. So this model is it's a good thing. How do we, I'll circle back to the question, and I'm sorry my chat's not on, you guys. I'm sorry. Let me get that on. How do we deal with that in Jefferson City? I mean, I think Catholic Charities is going to do a great deal to sort of help with the problem on a couple of different levels. The unhoused problem here, affordable housing is such an issue. It is such an issue, and especially after the tornado, it became a bigger issue. You could talk to Susan Williams, who's the executive director for Habitat for Humanity. I don't know if you guys have ever invited her to speak to the unhoused problem and the affordable housing struggles that we have in this town, but it's a big one, and they're all just kind of tied together.
And I think just an opinion, but I think a lot of people don't want to admit the depth of the poverty problem in this town.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right.
I think it's extremely out of sight, out of mind. I agree with you. Yeah. It's a problem. I know it's a problem. I know it's a problem. I know it's a problem because these are the clients that we work really hard to help here. So we see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that an expansion to the Samaritan Center? It is not. No. While they are both, so I am not, I'll tell you a person that you could have on here who would be wonderful to talk about what's happening with the Catholic Charities facility would be Dan Lester. He's their executive director and he's wonderful. My understanding from working with Dan, they were so good to us with our mobile pantries, which is how I really got to know him well, because we needed volunteers to help with those mobiles, and we needed younger volunteers. So he recruited a bunch of kids at Helias. So that was a great relationship. My understanding is the Samaritan Center, while it's a Catholic charity, it does not operate under the diocese. That is my understanding. The Catholic Charities operates under the diocese. I am a Presbyterian, so that is about all I know about the specifics of sort of how that structure is, but it is not an expansion to the Samaritan Center. But the Samaritan Center is a partner agency of ours, and it's a wonderful relationship and partnership. We're just adding another one. So we're always looking to add new partners. And there's a food pantry here in town that a friend of mine started, and I was talking to her. She was walking one day in the cold weather by my house, and I just kind of chatted her up about the pantry. It's called the Pantry. would she be interested in partnering with us? And there are some organizations that are not interested in doing that because we do have to capture some information as a requirement with our partnership to Feeding America. So there's some information that we do capture from our clients. We do not sell that information. Excuse me. We do not sell that information. We do not share that information, but we do capture some information, and that's really for Feeding America. It helps with the work that they do.
Thank you.
I'm gonna speak to volunteers, Anita, here in just a second. Sean Bailey, tough question. Yeah, was that the question about how do we deal with poverty? Yeah. So if it's okay, I would like to read
Yes.
something to you.
Yes, thank you.
I know you are all readers. It's a story I came about when I first started this job, and it will lead me to the last thing that I'll talk about, and it is to your question about volunteers. I was 5 years old when my mom took off with me to the coast. She said she needed a do-over. We were starting fresh with no belongings, no toys, no furniture. She said we had empty hands so that we could catch new blessings. We also had empty pockets, and she had no job. She drank our whole life away, and the booze had left us washed up in a tiny beach town called Rockaway, Oregon. She was hoping the ocean would catch her tears and loosen her chains. My mother loves the ocean. She is more herself when it is nearby. She believes that it sees and knows, that it moves and feels. It inspires her wonder and fear. She revels in the uncertainty that it could become angry at any moment and take lives at its will. To my mother, the ocean is God. Don't you ever take it for granted, Chrissy, she would say to me. When you look at that ocean, remember there's always something bigger than you. Respect her. Summer had just ended, and the quaint coastal town had begun to fold up. We found a small village, really a motel room with a kitchenette. We never said it was our home. To us, it was just number 6. My mother paid the first month's rent, enrolled me in kindergarten a block away, and bought us a sack of potatoes and some ketchup. And we began our new life. I don't remember being excited about school. It seemed so frivolous, and I thought I should be getting a job. I could get a paper route, I told my mother one night as we walked back to number 6 from the payphone, where she'd called my dad, begging him to send the $75 child support check. He promised he'd send it as soon as possible, but I knew the potatoes were running low. My mother looked for work, but the car we'd used to get to the town had broken down, and there were only 2 or 3 restaurants within walking distance of number 6. She didn't want to get a job in a bar because she was trying earnestly to stop drinking. Maybe 2 weeks passed and still no child support check, no money at all. I sat at the kitchen table one night watching Walter Cronkite deliver the evening news with his objectivity and journalistic integrity. He said something like, "Here is the news at this supper time." I remember this because I was so surprised by it. His words were otherwise so dry, so metered, but his mention of it being dinner time was almost friendly. I wondered if he could see us. How did he know it was time to eat? My mother was staring out the window with her back to me. I said to her, "Well, he's right. It is dinner time. Right, Mom?" I thought I was being clever and catching Cronkite's sincerity. She let out a sigh. Without turning around, she said, "Do you see that out there? Those people have let their garden grow over. The cabbages have gone to seed now. They'd never know or care if I just snuck over there and took one for you. The quivering in her voice scared me. She turned to me and wiped her eyes with a look so cool, I thought she might have been mad at me, and she said, "If I were a thief, I would go over there and I would steal those rotten cabbages for you, but I am not a thief." Without another word, she passed me. She walked out the front door of number 6. She left it open and I followed her. She walked down 5 cottages and knocked on the door to number 1, a larger cottage where an old man and a woman lived. Even though they were our neighbors, we had no idea who they were. The old lady opened the door and I wove around my mother so I could see inside. "This is my daughter, Christine," my mother stated. "We have no food. She's had nothing to eat but potatoes for a month. And now we don't even have any of those left. I don't care about myself, but could you please give her something to eat?" The old woman was short and fat with dark skin and black hair twisting around her head. Her name was Anita Hanover. Her husband was a tall white man who was just called Van. I could see into their cottage. The table was set, and Anita and Van were obviously just sitting down to eat. The smells coming from inside made me drool. I don't remember Anita saying anything to my mother or even asking her husband first if she could give us something, but I remember her packing up her table. The pot roast, the carrots, the gravy, the potatoes. She handed it all to my mother. It turned out that the couple had friends who owned one of the restaurants where my mom had tried to get a job. Anita talked to them and they hired her. Anita and Van became my caretakers in the evening. They saved my mother and me. At that moment, though, I don't think Anita and Van thought they were saving lives or forever changing the path of a child. I think they thought they were doing what they were supposed to do when a woman with a little girl comes to the door and says she needs to eat. What more needs to be said or done? They probably figured, that's it, you just need food. But when you give the best you have to someone in need, it translates into something much deeper to the receiver. It means that they are worthy. Anita gave so effortlessly and so quickly that I doubt she ever thought about it again. But that one moment taught me a lesson about giving that I have never forgotten. There came a day 30 years later when I passed that lesson on to my own children. My daughter's school had a food drive, and she was excited to collect food for it. Even at 10 years old, she had a strong sense of community. She wanted to be either a police officer so she could help people, or an astronaut so she could protect the planet from wayward asteroids. We had to keep her from watching the news because it moved her to the point of tears. Her heart would break for the human condition. She went to our pantry and started bagging up the canned and dry goods, all the while she talked. "Oh, I'll put in the green beans. I don't like those. I'll save the Kraft macaroni and cheese. We can give them some no-name brand." And I realized that my daughter, as generous and kind and good as she already was, knew nothing about giving. I felt like I had taught her nothing. She didn't know about Anita and Van. She didn't know about number 6. She didn't know that she could see the face of a hungry child if she looked long enough at her own mother. So I told her that my kindergarten teacher thought I was retarded because I was so hungry that I didn't perform well in school and was always slower than the rest of the class. I told her that Anita could have just gone to her cupboard and made me a peanut butter sandwich, and my mother and I would have been so grateful. She didn't do that. She gave the best she had. The biggest problem with poverty is the shame that comes with it. When you give the best you have to someone in need, it translates into something much deeper to the receiver. It means they are worthy. If it's not good enough for you, it's not good enough for those in need either. Giving the best you have does more than feed an empty belly, it feeds the soul. And so I like to end with that story because I think it's a really profound story. And I think oftentimes we're giving and we're doing the best we can, but we're not thinking about kind of like, but give the best you can. And in giving, there are so many ways to give, and what we say, and I'm sure what you've heard, or you can give your time, you can give your treasure, you can give your talent, you can give all three. You can give two of the three. And so if time is what you have, if you have time, seems like we have a lot of it these days. You can volunteer, and we're starting to need volunteers again. We're absolutely starting to need our volunteers again. We need them at our mobile pantries, and we're going to need them for our summer feeding program if that gets back online. I didn't bring that up because I'm not sure if it's still going to be the buddy packs, but distributing the buddy packs we need. Our local agencies are always looking for volunteers, always. So you can give of your time. You can give of your talent. We have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mike Michelson, just a local, pretty fabulous man. When COVID started, he used to play the piano at Bones every Friday night. Before that, he played at the library at the old Ramada Inn for decades, I think. When that closed down, he started playing at Bones on Friday nights. Well, when COVID hit, he stopped doing that, and he started doing live Friday night shows on Facebook. And initially he started raising money for the bartenders at Bones because they were really struggling because they weren't getting a paycheck and there had been no relief yet. And once they sort of sorted that out with the with some of the stimulus and relief, he started raising money for the food bank. And that was his treasure, right? Or his talent. He had this talent of playing music. He had this huge following, and he just did a GoFundMe link or a PayPal link on social media, and he raised money for us, and he has continued to do that through the pandemic. He doesn't do it every week, but he does it when he feels called to do it, and we are so grateful for the use of his talent to help support our efforts. And then there's your treasure. If you've got a little extra to spare, and writing a check is easier for you, that's another way to give. So I think somebody said, do we need volunteers? Absolutely. I'm going to personally need volunteers. Most of our events over the past year, well, every single one of our events has been canceled, just like every nonprofit. And we've tried to get creative, right? We've done online auctions and different creative things to kind of recapture the money that we're losing from our annual events. But there is an event that we have a go ahead for, and I'm really excited about it. And it is called Stamp Out Hunger. And it's with the United States Postal Service. We've been doing it for years and years and years. You probably know it by the little blue bag or clear bag that they leave at your doorstep. And you can put canned goods in it. Your postmaster or your postman or woman will pick that up with your mail. It is always the second Saturday of May. And I need volunteers on that day at the post office over on City View. It's the one by Zesto. It's not the big one downtown. It's the one by Zesto. That's where they host it. In my 8 counties, there are 13 post offices that are participating, but the one here in Jeff City will put out 35,000 bags and then have volunteers sort food during the day. So if you are available on Saturday, May 8th, the easiest way to volunteer with us is to go to our website, the Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri.org, and click on the volunteer. And you'll fill out a form and you'll get into our system, and we'll send you reminders when we have events that we need volunteers for. We absolutely cannot do the work that we do without our volunteers, and we're starting to need them again, need you again. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes. Can count me in.
Yay. Well, I'll be there. I'll be there all day. But yeah, we'd love to have you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you for asking, Sean Bailey. There is an age limit right now due to COVID, and it is 18. that can change when we're through with this pandemic. Parents can, Sean, are you younger than 18? I can't tell. My eyes are so bad and I have my glasses on. When we're done, when we get through this pandemic, that will change, but we've been really pretty adherent on some strict rules to keep our volunteers safe. So 18 is the magic number.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are Girl Scouts. I love Girl Scouts. I was a proud Girl Scout. My grandmother won the National Girl Scout Award. She was the big kahuna. They took her to New York. Betty Jo Wood. She passed away in 2005. But yeah, proud. I'm a proud Girl Scout. Good for you for being a girl. I bet you miss your weekly meetings with your friends so much. I bet. Yeah. One of my friends was doing a Zoom with Boy Scouts earlier, and I was like, oh, I bet they miss those meetings. That was the highlight of my week growing up. Good for you. Pin Oak, is Pin Oak still open? You guys still go to Camp Pin Oak? Okay. Trying to get that going again. Okay. Chris, is it okay if I type my email? And you guys, if you want it, you can email directly and it'll be on here. Is that cool? I'm gonna do that.
And we're recording this program, so it will be on our website later on, or
Really
our
fun.
YouTube channel.
That works for me. So Chris and Sean, here is my email. So if you guys want to just email me directly, I can speak to you kind of specifically about what you can do. And maybe if you can't do something with us, we could get you hooked up with one of our partner agencies that have different rules. And I can keep you absolutely posted on what's going on. Does that work?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jami. This was so informative and important. So.
Well, I am on behalf of the food bank. I'm grateful to have the venue to talk about what we're doing, and I am here. My email is there. I'm here if you have any questions or if there's anything you can do. If you know somebody that needs help, reach out to me. I do a lot of things behind the scenes that might not even be part of my job description. I have been known to make some phone calls over to the Capitol to get people help with the SNAP program. I will help. So if you can use me, please do. I'm here for it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And
So
good
welcome.
evening. And thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Stay warm.
Yes.